Hey, welcome to this beginner art course, the series in which I break down art theory and practice into easy to digest, bite-sized chunks. I'm Aaron and you're watching episode 4 where we're talking about observational drawing. In this case we'll be doing a still life and looking at how to use visual measuring techniques to reproduce a scene. Just for completeness, the paper I was working on was a roughly A4 piece of 140 GSM, so not super thick, but it can take a light wash and it has a bit of texture to it. For the base drawing, I was working with HB graphite, and I worked a little bit harder than I normally would as well, so it showed up on camera. Normally for your construction lines you'd want to work pretty light so they can be rubbed out. I actually like to see construction lines showing through in a final drawing. I think it has a kind of honesty to it, but that is just a personal preference. Many would consider that a mistake. To start an observational drawing, you're going to want to assign what is going to be in the image and the framing. This is particularly important when doing something like a landscape, where your crop will dictate the scale of the individual elements. I'm just doing a simple scene, so I made sure that it fitted comfortably on the page. As a general rule, you want to put a little bit more space at the top than the bottom of your subject, give it a little headspace, otherwise it can look a little claustrophobic. Observational drawing is all about relationships, everything being in context with every other thing. Starting out with a base drawing that you've constructed accurately will help you immensely, as it sorts out all of your masses and silhouettes before you start applying your tonal layer. No matter how good you are at rendering, your drawings will always look off if your proportions are wrong, so use this early step to get those kinks all worked out. The main method for visual measuring I'll be using is just the arm's length method. So this essentially involves you holding your implement at arm's length, using the tip as one extreme and holding your thumb to mark the other extreme of what you're measuring. To reduce errors in consistency, it's important that you keep your elbow extended, close one eye and tip your head towards your shoulder. This will keep your measurements the same each time. This method is useful for checking the relationship of one part of your scene against another. For example, when doing a figure drawing you might find the vertical height of the head and then use that to estimate the overall height of the figure. This then gives you a pretty accurate way to work out your framing. If you start drawing and you're working too large, either your drawing is going to end up falling off the page, or you're going to end up changing the proportions to make it fit, and then it's just not going to look right. Using your pencil has its benefits. It's already in your hand, and if you're out and about it might be the only implement that you have with you. However, if I have one with me, I prefer to use a ruler. The resolution of the ruler allows me to see the relationship between elements and find the overall width and height of the subject I'm drawing really quickly. The first thing I do in this drawing is to find the overall dimensions and draw onto my page a rectangle to represent that. I know that the extreme points of my scene will be touching this line, but everything is going to be contained. Again, I use my measuring technique. This time I use it to find the major vertical lines of the main masses. In this scene I have a glass of water, a bottle of glue and a clock, so I can just measure to the vertical lines of those forms. With the bottle of glue, as this is my topmost point, I measure and mark the point that it intersects my frame as well. The next step is to measure from that top point of the bottle down and mark off important horizontal measurements. I make marks that indicate the top of the glass, the water inside and the bottom. I also take measurements for the valve of the bottle and its angled top corners, as well as the point at which the tissue the glass is sat on intersects the left side of the frame. And then I use another visual measuring technique. This one is for measuring angles. In this case, we hold our implement at arm's length again, shut one eye and align the edge parallel with the edge we're wanting to reproduce. Holding that measurement fixed, we can rotate back to our page and mark off the angle accurately. This method works best when your page is at the same angle as the image that you're measuring, so in most cases that would be vertical. When working on a table, the best method for reproducing angles would be to measure the horizontal and vertical component of 2 points along the line, and then drawing the line in between. Constructing a drawing really is just a lot of this. The hardest part is working out where to start. So step 1, work out what you're wanting in the drawing and how you're going to frame it on the page. Step 2, using visual measuring techniques, find the major points of the intersection with your frame. In my case this is the bottle at the top and the tissue to the left and base. Mark those points. Step 3, using visual measuring again, mark off your verticals of the major forms. These will then serve as datum points that you can measure from to build up your next elements. Step 4, use your construction lines to work out your line work. Rub out to erase or reduce any construction lines that are too bold. Step 5, analyse your values and mark out where your areas of light, medium and dark tones will be. And then, finally, step 6, render. I'll be using an ink wash to render mine, but for you that might be different. With regards to drawing circles in perspective, here's a little breakdown to help. Start with marking off the 4 outermost points of your circle. Maintaining the perspective that the object is on, mark out your bounding box. Find the centre of that box by joining opposite corners and then mark your vertical and horizontal lines. Where these touch the outside of your bounding box, the box acts as tangents for your circle, and this will give you a guide for the distortion. I use this mainly for the clock face on here, but I do use a shorthand version to construct the ellipses of the glass as well. It's always helpful to go around your drawing just double checking measurements and relationships in a few different methods by using the angle way or by using the visual measuring way. So one way that's really good for checking is with the angle method. Pick 2 points on your scene, match the angle and see if the angle is the same on your drawing. And as well, generally if something looks wrong, it probably is. You want your line drawing to resemble accurately the scene that you're drawing, and while your eyes might not be able to tell you exactly what's wrong, if you feel like you need to remeasure something then you should. I would always recommend drawing from real life. Photos help, and techniques like gridding will really aid you in reproducing photos, but drawing from life using visual measuring techniques will always teach you the most, the fastest. Once I'd done my construction lines, I then refined it a little and erased some parts that I'd drawn in too dark. I started indicating areas of values as well. To do this, I relaxed my eyes completely, allowing them to blur. This took my focus away from the specifics of the scene, and it really lets you see the values relative to one another. I broke it up into 3 or 4 levels of darkness, and where those areas were quite discreet, such as around shadows or in the reflections on the clock, I put lines in to guide me later. So I chose to use an ink wash for my rendering, but you are more than welcome to use whatever technique that you wish. I really like the ink wash because I think when it's done over light pencil work, you don't really see the pencil anymore, you just see the areas of value. And to me, an image shouldn't have outlines. Reality doesn't have outlines, and it doesn't really make a huge amount of sense to me to put those in, other than by different areas of value. So that's why I chose to use an ink wash on top of graphite. I started off by doing a really light wash over everything that was not white. Some areas that I wanted to remain a little lighter than that wash, I dabbed away with tissue to bring back up. I allowed that to dry and then came in again with a slightly darker shade and painted over everything that was that tone or less. Once that was dry, I came in a third time to add even darker value to the darkest points. After all those layers had dried, I came in with white acrylic to bring back a couple of areas I wanted lighter, such as the tissue and the top of the clock. I could have come in with another coat to really bring those areas back to white, but I enjoyed the variation. I did use my Uniball Signo white gel pen to accent a few points, such as the white on the eraser or the highlight around the top of the glass. Even if you think your drawing is going badly, or you think you've gone the wrong way with it, just carry on. You'd be surprised how many times you can just work through an uninspiring part of the process and come out the other side with an image that you're actually proud of. So, for some self-criticism, I should have used a heavier weight paper to take the wash better, and the ink I used wasn't proper art ink, so it didn't react predictably to being watered down. I should have used proper India ink or water-soluble graphite. These are not inherently problems, but it is important to know that your media is going to act as you expect it to when it comes down to it. I should have also paid more attention to the details in the glass, and used a paintbrush that was better sized to meet the level of detail that I was aiming for. It's just like anything, it's a case of practice. Being able to see and accurately reproduce is a skill, and through practice you'll improve greatly. While I have been tapping away at making images for quite a few years, I've never really put in a concerted effort to improve until now, so I'm still far from proficient. The techniques of visual measuring I've described here are pretty standard and will get you through most, if not all, observational drawing challenges. Observational drawing will really increase your artistic vocabulary and provide you the foundations to be able to move forwards with your own images. You learn so much about proportion and visual weighting and material quality from doing observational drawings, and really get an understanding for things that normal interactions don't afford you. I mean, when was the last time you spent an hour studying your alarm clock? So that's it for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed the video, I hope it's been helpful and you've learned some new techniques. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, hit that subscribe button, and as always, thanks for watching. Have a great day.